Adam, practice 10 today, so the Buffs are two-thirds of the way through spring football. And receiver day today. We got receivers coach Jason Phillips and also, I guess, now sophomore Drelon Miller. So good interviews today, and obviously a very different room. I mean, the very first thing Jason Phillips said as well, it's very different out there. There's no more, LeJonte and Will and Travis and Jimmy. So, yeah, a very different room. I mean, Drelon Miller is now the most experienced guy on the team with 32 career catches, which is crazy.
Yeah, he's had to grow up in a hurry, and it was really cool to see him out here at CU's Pro Timing Day event, because you looked out there, and if somebody told you this youngster was going to be in the NFL draft later that month, physically, it wouldn't have shocked you.
Right.
He's well put together, and obviously he's got more developing to do before that's the reality for him. But just the trust that Shedeur Sanders built with him over last season was pretty special, to be able to get that invite and be kind of out of the backfield, which Coach Phillips joked that it was tough to watch him not only play out of the backfield, but he's not ready for him to be leaving this program anytime soon.
Yeah, get away from those NFL scouts right now. You asked him how it came about that he was involved with Pro Day, and he kind of laughed and he said he went home for spring break and he got a call saying get up here for Pro Day, and he was like, okay, all of a sudden he's training. But you're right. I mean, but man, you watch him on Friday, and you watch him in the games last year, right? But Drelon Miller belongs with that group, and that's to me a future NFL player.
And he learned some lessons too. You had those growing pains last year. Yeah. He had to get through. I think you think back to the Nebraska game and some other things, but no, it was really fun to kind of watch his development as it went through last season. And now you see him and Terrell Timmons being the big voices there in that receivers room, which I think last year you would probably say Colorado was their deepest and best position. This year it has to prove to be that, but it's maybe the most intriguing position on the team because you've got so many guys that have shown flashes here and there. Do they all put it together this year? I would imagine you'll have more of a rotation going at receiver this year than what we saw the past couple years here.
Jimmy Horn was asked on Friday about this new receiver group, and he goes, they're really good. He goes, now I'm going to get competitive here, though. I think we were better. You have to agree with him right now. I mean, going into last year, that group had more than 600 career catches. This group right now has just a little over 100. So it's quite a bit different. Jason Phillips talked about it. Like I said, Drelon Miller with 32 catches has the most on this team. So it's a very different spring for Jason Phillips.
Yeah, but there's a lot of talent in that room. There's a pressure on him to develop that talent. But, I think most receivers coaches in the country would take this group and be pretty happy about it. Yeah. Even Joseph Williams looks like he's coming on, the transfer from Tulsa. He really showed that ability to win those 50-50 battles last year and made just one of the most incredible catches I've seen on this practice field through their social media channels last week in a practice. And Isaiah Harge has come on, and it looks like he's found a role at slot receiver. Omari and Miller were so anxious. Yeah. If he can stay healthy and he gets out there, you could see him become an all-conference guy. I mean, he's that talented. Yeah. So, a lot of intriguing pieces there. And Terrell Timmons, who is kind of the elder statesman in that room, that showed a few things last year, but Coach Phillips said today after practice that he needs more consistency out of him.
Yeah. Speaking of Isaiah Harge, I mean, he mentioned Harge is a guy he can definitely see taking up a lot of that production that they miss in the slot. For Phillips, though, it's obviously awesome to coach the group that now is preparing for the NFL draft with Travis and Jimmy and all those guys. But he also mentioned this group. He goes, it's very different, but he loves it because he gets to actually teach. That's what he's here to do, is teach and coach and things like that. And so I imagine it's got to be a lot of fun for him in a different way.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the part when you hear guys that they become head coaches, they miss being able to kind of have that direct influence on the football side of things. And so any position coach that's good at this level embraces those challenges. And so you can tell, I think there's, based on his interview today, there's definitely some consistency that needs to come out of this group a little bit more day to day. But I think as they get closer to that season opener, that'll be a pretty good group that he's got.
Yeah, he's still very fortunate. He's got a lot of talent to work with. Real quick, their first scrimmage of the spring was on Saturday. We didn't get to see it, but obviously we watched the well-off and see some of the things there. Anything that jumped out at you?
Well, R.J. Johnson is a guy that keeps standing out at cornerback. You've now got, I think, 4 guys at cornerback that you'd feel really good about starting. We'll see if they add another person that you'd feel comfortable before you get to the season opener. But that was a guy that I didn't really know what to expect. He was a safety last year, but he is more comfortable at cornerback. He said that. He was a cornerback and receiver growing up, and I've seen a big step out of him. They're still tinkering with the lines. It looks like they're very far from figuring out who their starting 5 offensive linemen are going to be. Both quarterbacks seem to make some good throws, but then also threw a pick. So kind of your standard spring scrimmage where you don't want to take too much away from it. But no, I feel like there's more back and forth with this team. There's a lot of balance across the board. And the D-line seemed to make some nice plays in there on Saturday scrimmage as well. What would you think?
Yeah, well, first off, I would say this is what makes potentially doing a spring scrimmage against a Syracuse or something like that difficult, is that, first off, you don't have your full team yet, but there's a number of guys on this team that are out, and I imagine around the country there are, but, you speak of offensive line, Cash Cleveland is out right now, and, Preston Hodge is out at corner, and there's a number of guys that just aren't participating right now because they're injured. So I think you're depleted in some areas, and so that's the first thing you look at is like, all right, I write down like who's on the offensive line, the starting offensive line, but is that really the group? I mean, Zary McGill is playing center, but is that really Cash's spot? So who knows? But I think a couple of things that jumped out at me is they got some guys that can hit in the front 7. Jalen Wester, he was making some plays out there the other day, and Reginald Hughes, I thought, made a couple nice plays. Tufik Byard jumped out at me a couple times making some plays. So there was a little fight that went on. Martavius French, throwing the hands a little bit at Tyler Brown. So that was interesting to see. But they're getting in the mix there, and Coach Prime, I almost said Pride, but Coach Prime, talked to that offensive line about having some pride. And hey, when a linebacker punks you like that, go after him. Yeah,
I think the patience for the O-line is probably a little thinner in year 3. Like, there were times last year, and it was an improvement last year. I don't think anybody would debate that. And there were some moments, when you'd see Khalil Benson really step up and get aggressive and get in other teams' faces. And that's what you need out of that group, especially following that 2023 season. They're still having to kind of coax it out of them a little bit. And I expect the next time somebody puts hands on Tyler Brown, it's not going to end very well for them. That's what spring's about, creating that competition. But they need to have that edge, that group, especially Shedeur was tough as nails, and you need to be able to go from 2023 to 2024 to 2025 and have that same jump you had last year at least, I think, if you're talking about this team getting close to reaching its goals.
Especially because you don't have Shedeur quarterback, in my opinion. So it's going to be interesting to see how that group shakes out. We get a chance to see it here in a couple of weeks with the spring game. I'm excited for that. But we got, I guess, 4 more practices to get to, and so we'll be back on Thursday.